there was something that came to Nan about, you guys. So let's just dive right into it, Nan. Let's skip all the shenanigans. We can talk about our lives after. Let's just kind of dive down into this, because this is one I think that the audience, our listeners, those watching us are going to really like. And this is where we talk about psychic mediums and detectives and investigations, missing persons, homicides, and that kind of stuff. And when I decided that this was something I was going to approach Nan with, it was because I was listening to a podcast. And in the podcast, it was called Crime Junkies. We love you, Ash. We love you, Britt. And they were talking about how there was a case, and they happened to mention about a psychic being brought in. Now, the crazy thing, Nan, about this is that after I listened to that specific case, after I went to you and said, hey, we should talk a little bit about psychics and detectives and cases and whatever, I think on the next 3 episodes they brought up psychics and mediums again.
Welcome to the Spirits, Angels, and Guides Oh My podcast,
where the supernatural gets real, baby. Welcome, friends, to Spirit, Angels, and Guides, oh my, and we is going to go down the shadowy corridors of criminal investigations with, it says, tangible meets the intangible. I love that.
It said being her notes that she's typed out.
Well, what's funny is that I had to type them out because I don't want to miss anything. And you guys all know me. I'm like, woo, squirrels. So I just want you guys to take a second, and I want you to imagine detectives at their wits' end. Okay? They have just hit their wall. They can't figure out anything more. And so who do they go to? The psychic mediums. Now, before we even go down that road, and I'm making fun of it, but I don't think I know, Nan, one intuitive, one medium who has not been approached, not necessarily by detectives or the RCMP or, the FBI, CIA, whatever. I think, I don't know anyone that hasn't been approached by someone, even if it's a friend or a colleague or an acquaintance, that hasn't asked us or them to tap into something that has to do with, not only missing people, but missing items, pets, Nan. Yeah. How many people do you get that call you up and say, find my damn rabbit?
So many. So many.
And it's a slippery slope for some of us. It is one that I tend not to go down. I have done missing persons work before, and I don't love it. I don't love it for what it does to me.
Because that's, it's interesting because I think, especially when you and I are teaching people about development and this and that, and a lot of people are like, oh, that'd be cool. But really, when you're in the thick of it and you're in the weeds helping on something like that, you and I work from love and light. We work with a lot of positive energy, and that type of stuff takes us down in the dark and in the weeds into where the energy isn't as vibrant and sunshiny, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And the other thing is that there is an expectation, there's a lot of pressure, and not everyone is a seer. That's SEER. Not everyone is a seer. So as a medium, I feel things more than I see things. I'm an empath who works with claircognizance and the feelings and knowings of things. So for me, I would get really drawn into oh my gosh, what am I picking up? Am I not picking up? Why am I not picking up? Where are they? And it just is not my forte. And there are other people out there in this world that do better work. I don't know a lot of them. Most of them don't advertise it. Can I just say that to you? I know James Van Praagh. I know, there John Edward. I know, there are people that are quite well known. Noreen, I think her name is Noreen Reiners. They are quite well known for this and doing the work and respected in it. I don't know who John Edward is, but don't come at me, friend. But I know Noreen is. I know there's a woman, Dorothy Allison. I think I said her last name right. I could be wrong. But Dorothy Allison, who are highly respected. But think about those names. You don't hear them very often, do you?
No. And a lot of people do the work pro bono. because just of the level, you're helping heal someone, you're helping find closure, right? And but it's very emotionally draining to do the work. So yeah, a lot of us do not advertise that we do that. But it's also the same, if I may say, for, I'm going to call it death doula work I do with animals, because I don't know what else to call it. I don't advertise that. It's something that I've done for quite a few people, because I just help get the animal and the person ready for the animal to go home. It's also a very sensitive time. It's a different type of energy.
Yeah.
So I tend to, I think it's like with anyone, but even some of the missing persons cases that you're going to talk about, it shows the ugly side of humanity more often than not, right? And you and I you're an empowerment medium. You like to empower people, right? So
I also want to say this. There is a tremendous amount of sadness when I can't pick up anything, or I'm not given anything from spirit. And then I question, well, how come I'm not picking up? And I truly and wholeheartedly believe, Nan, it's because my humanness outshines my spirit work in those moments, because I want to be of service that badly. So I leave it to other people, but it's a very interesting thing. And so we're going to talk about two fairly famous cases, if you will, where, the psychic mediums were brought in to, kind of give some guidance, illuminate the path to justice. And we're going to see whether they were able to provide what was needed to bring the case to a close. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about, psychic mediums having been called, to do this kind of work. And it's all over the place. There's psychic mediums all over. And psychic mediums aren't just called. Psychic mediums, lots of them will happily throw themselves into the case, right? They're usually called in as a last resort because detectives are very much about facts. Right? They're very much about, it's got to be tangible, baby. That's why I made the giggling about the tangible meets the intangible, because they like the facts. It has to, and so do the people who you are trying to help. The families, the partners. They want to see something tangible, not just go on. And there's nothing worse than being told something, and you're hanging on to that for dear life, right? So we're going to uncover a little bit of the mystical, interventions that kind of shaped these investigations. And again, this kind of involvement though, Nan, when I looked at it, it's been going on for since the mid 20th centuries, that people like detectives and, I don't know what else you call them, detectives, police, have been asking, as a last resort, more often than not, psychics to come in. Right?
And that's no surprise to me. We've always been sort of hidden on the outskirts. And sometimes, I find a lot of people will come to us as that last resort where, I've tried everything through this healing process, through this grieving process. And yeah, that makes
so true, Nan. So true. Last resort kind of stuff. And of course, there's always a varying, I'm just coming to you because I don't know what else to do. And they're skeptical and you're like, oh, Goddess, help me, help you. So let's just get to it. The first case I want to talk about is the case of Stephen Hawkness. And we're going to call this a successful experience, if you will. So I'm going to give you some background. Okay, now I feel like Nan. I'm not as cute as Nan, but I feel like Nan. So in 1975, 17-year-old Stephen Hawkness went missing in London, Ontario, Canada. I would like props for me finding something in Canada. Thank you. Despite extensive... Thank you. I've been getting gold stars all around today. Despite extensive investigations, the police were unable to locate him or determine his fate. Now, I just want to kind of give you guys a little bit of an overall. I didn't do huge deep dives into this. I wanted us to have the conversation around the outcome of it, what kind of things, psychic mediums would be able to give to them. And that's where we're going with this. So I'm giving you minimal background here. So 17-year-old, 1975, police can't find him. Don't know what's happened to him. So they call in a psychic medium, okay? And it was an interesting thing is that they actually called in, Nan, I love this, a psychic detective. That's a thing.
That's cool. That's a good title.
That's a thing. I love that. So a psychic detective by the name of Gerard, oh gosh, you know me, Coursiet. Croiset. So Gerard Coursiet, and he was a Dutch clairvoyant known for his work in missing person cases. Because remember, they don't know what's happened to him. They haven't found him yet. So what did this psychic detective contribute to the investigation? So he contributed detailed visions pinpointing a specific area near the Thames River. I hope I said that right. Thames. I always feel like I need to go back to school. River where he believed Hawkness's body could be found. He described landmarks and the condition of the environment with surprising accuracy. Okay, love that. Let's stop for a second and talk about what he's providing. So that to me, he called himself a clairvoyant, which I feel is accurate. He's seeing as seer, and he's seeing landmarks. He's seeing things in such a manner that it's enough to pinpoint. Thoughts, Nan?
Yeah, no, that's very cool. I mean, I was just thinking while you were talking about that, and we've come across, you introduced me to a gentleman who was a seer, and it's a hard gift to have, but it makes sense that it's a perfect match for working as a psychic detective.
Well, when you can be as accurate as pinpointing locations, because anyone can say, I see forest and I see a hill. I see a body of water. This feels more pinpointy-ish, more like in depth with what they were saying. So what's the outcome of this? Following the psychic detective's descriptions, police searched the identified area. Like, he identified the area enough, my friends, that the police could go there. So they searched it and they discovered Hawkness's remains. Wow. The psychic's insights were crucial in locating the body, providing closure to the family, and ending the investigation. Okay, super cool. This guy is the real deal, in my view. Me being a psychic medium, this man is the real deal. That doesn't mean that every psychic that goes to provide information is not the real deal if it doesn't bring an ending. Okay, that's not what I'm saying here. But this guy was accurate enough in this particular case that he could be, and he must be, Nan. Let's think about this for a second. And we should I'm going to look into him maybe a little bit down the road and add it into our Instagram account about Gerard. I'm just going to call him Gerard because, we're on a first name basis. But I'm going to look into it because when you name yourself something like, I'm a psychic detective, you are claiming something. It's like when I claim to be an empowerment medium, I own that, right? When you claim to be an animal communicator, you own that. So he must be doing other work as well. He could be crossed over by now because 1975, right? So he could be crossed over. But this is a beautiful kind of correlation to the idea that he's providing actual tangible information that they could work on. So the outcome, well, they found him. They brought a closing to it. And so this is considered a success, right, in this instance, because the psychic's insight contributed significantly to Stephen being found.
I love that. So,
it solves a mystery. It's got this great ending for it. And, those of us that believe in this, we really, really feel that there are these opportunities to help with what we have. And sometimes it's helping like the psychic detective. Sometimes it's helping like Nan. I keep going to this rabbit with you. I don't know why. You must have told me a story about a rabbit, but I keep seeing you like tapping into this rabbit and giving this information. And it was so valuable to the rabbit's mommy. And, you know, it was so valuable. Or when, you know, a healer, I don't like calling them healers, an energy practitioner comes in and does some work. That's so valuable. This is a great, great moment to just be able to say that there are psychic mediums out there. There are people that can do this work. Not everyone is as accurate. We all receive it differently. Some people, we have to kind of like muddle through it a little bit. That's not because they're any less good than, say, the next person. It's just the way we all get it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, you're right. We all receive information differently. The rabbit is a story for another time. It's I've had all sorts of incredible, interesting readings on animals, and I've had people reach out asking for help finding lost animals. Unfortunately, you know, I was only able to zoom in. I'm like, I see a color fence like this. I feel like it's within this block radius. Like, so, but they found the cat and they brought him home. So it was a win, but it certainly wasn't as specific as he's on the corner of Johnston Street in Maine. And, you know, because it is going to be one of those things that we all have, like you said, different skill sets that we bring to this.
But you just made a really valid point. Sometimes that's just enough. That little bit of guidance that I'm seeing this on this street, I'm feeling this, you're in this area, that can be enough. That can be enough.
Yeah.
Skeptics won't love it because they're like, well, I need something more than that.
Yeah.
I need something more than a body of water that's close by. But what if that is just enough to get someone to walk towards a particular body of water that they weren't going to go to before? What if?
And that's just it. And again, that comes back to everything being made of energy, and we're tapping into like an energetic grid when we do this work, right? A lot of the reason too, on the flip side, that people don't get into it, and a few of the cases I've had friends ask me about, they're like, you need to go to the police with this information. I'm like, hard stop, no. Because if I go in to the police with this information that I'm seeing, and then the police are like, how do you know so much about this? And the next thing you know, I'm arrested and being questioned about it. Like,
and there I go down to the cells with the bail money in hand and be like, I'm going to get her out. She's innocent. But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And there's been lots of talk about that if you go into Reddit or any of those places where you can go in there and you can be like, you know, you'll see mediums and psychics that have said, hey, I came through with something for someone and it got turned on me faster than you can hit spin. And the other thing is, you know, so many skeptics out there, right? That a lot of times it's really hard to put yourself, when you're trying to be helpful, put yourself in those situations. So let's talk about an unsuccessful experience. And then I'm going to share something with you guys about an experience I had. So the disappearance of Elizabeth Smart. Now, this is very famous. This was all over the place, all Oprah, anything you can think of. Elizabeth Smart was on there. And these are the cases that, again, I just want to remind people, there are a lot of us. Everyone's a psychic and everyone's a medium, correct?
Correct.
Thank you very much. So not everyone is actually connected, though. So they're not receiving. They can receive. Everyone can receive babies, but they're not necessarily receiving. So there are a lot of people who look for notoriety in these kinds of things. Okay? And I always say, this is my humble opinion. You can come at me if you want to, but there are a lot of people that will start calling up and will start being like, I see this, or I know this, or I know that, without, you know, any kind of actual connection going on. So those things waste detectives' time, waste people's time and put in false hopes for things. So I ain't with that. I don't love that. But let's go back to Elizabeth Smart.
7:27, and we have a major story breaking at this hour. A 14-year-old girl kidnapped from her home by an intruder during the night in the Federal Heights area.
There's 1,000 million trillion psychics and mediums that we're coming through, and we're trying to give information to all of this. So let me give you some background. Remember, I just do the little bitty background, and so we can have more of a discussion about this. So the background, in 2002, 14-year-old Elizabeth Smart was abducted from her home in Salt Lake City, Utah. Her disappearance received national attention, leading to a massive search effort. So, what's the psychic involvement? Multiple psychics offered assistance. Stay with me, friends. Providing various visions, insights regarding where Elizabeth's whereabouts and what condition she was in. Some went as far as say Elizabeth was dead. She wasn't here with us anymore. They were connecting with her on the other side. Others offered locations that were like in freaking Timbuktu, like across the world. She was sold and all, so much so that I was like, I'm not reading all of this. This is just garbage. But she was found.
Utah's miracle. Elizabeth Smart is alive and well after 9 months, finally reunited with her family tonight.
I definitely think it's been a miracle. I don't know how else it can even be described. It's amazing. It does not make any logical sense.
Everybody's helped, everybody's prayed to do whatever they can. We thank God for all the searchers, for all the people in the history of the world. I don't think a little girl has been prayed for more than Elizabeth Smart, and we thank you for answering those prayers.
Thank you.
This reminds me of Sylvia Brown. Do you know what I'm going to talk about?
Yes, I was just going to say that reminds me of that. I forget the girl's name. And she was chastised for it.
Chastised. She was like mutilated for it, excuse the language. And she was on a talk show. It was an English talk show, and I cannot remember what it was. But they crucified her for this, but she stood by it. She was like, "This is what I received. I don't know what to make of it." But again, and Sylvia Brown. If you don't know who Sylvia Brown is, she is she's passed over for quite a few years now, but she was a very famous psychic intuitive medium in the UK, and she was well known. She has 1 million card decks and books and all sorts of things, and she was kind of the go-to. Again, another person who spent too much time on TV, in my view, but she was a go-to, for all of this. And when this happened, it really affected her. It affected her whole career in this work. So, She was found just 18 miles from her home when she was spotted in public by an alert citizen. So none of the psychic predictions proved accurate in locating her or assisting in her recovery. So this case highlights the limitations, the potential diversions of resources that can occur when relying on a psychic's insights. Now, again, I want to say to you that there is a lot of people doing this work, my babies, and I want you to hear me. I'm going to say it louder for those in the back. You have to know who you're dealing with. And right now, social media is cray-cray with people out there claiming to do all sorts of things. And there's even these new modalities coming out. I don't know if you're going to agree with me. I know Nan's going to agree with me, but I don't know if you guys, my listeners, the audience, Nan and I's friends, are going to, agree with me on this, but not everyone is supposed to do this work. You have to be able to trust the person. And there are people that can dupe you faster than your heads could spin with this stuff. They'll be able to read you and be able to tell you what you need to hear, and you're going to fall hook, line, and sinker. So be strong, ask questions, be smart. Oh my God, now I sound like Ash and Britt, when they're talking about don't fall for the traps of the, criminals. But it's true, be smart, ask the questions, get referrals. Do a little bit of research.
I agree with you 100%. And I want to return to the whole Sylvia Browne thing for a second and then get back to your story. She's a very gifted medium. She basically got a lot of us started because she was the only one publishing books around that time. So like a lot of the mediums, we deep dove, we read her books, we bought the cards, we watched her on TV, and she made it acceptable. But one of the things is what you said earlier, we don't get it right all the time, right? And so maybe she was tapping into an energy of that girl where that girl really wanted to be on the other side. And so soul-wise, her energy was not here. And a lot of us spiritual people will go up into our spirituality. And so maybe she was doing that. Maybe that was the safe place for her and she wasn't physically in her body, if that makes sense. Like there's so many variables that I think could have contributed to that. But when you talk about social media, just the fear mongering, the hate mongering, the minute that somebody does something wrong, all of a sudden everybody's got the pitchforks out and they're chasing them because they don't understand it, so they might as well rip it apart, right?
Truth. And that brings me to this, the kind of closing on this particular case is like, critics will always be like, okay, psychics may occasionally hit it on the mark or, provide some helpful information. But when they don't, it often leads to like confusion, false hope. And that is the part that for me, I don't ever want to give anyone. I don't ever want to give anyone of that, that kind of stuff. But when you have a successful case like Stephen Hawkins, then you're like, yay! There's so much potential to all of this. There's so much, but you got to find the right people. And they gotta be able, we could debate this forever, but be able to like back up their stuff. Right? And you're not wrong when you say, they might be picking up on this. But think about it like this too, Nan. There are people doing math equations for NASA that have made a mistake.
Oh, exactly. And I think, if we were to sort of summarize this whole episode into a couple sentences, you did it earlier with investigate, right? Do the research. Is this person legitimate? Do they have references? Are they giving evidential evidence? Have they had success with these type of cases before? Because a lot of times too, people, when they're looking for a missing loved one, will go on blind faith. They
Absolutely.
so desperately want that answer. And unfortunately, that is the time where you do need to have the extra foresight to go, let me investigate this, rather than throw all your hopes into one person that might not be a good fit, but it'll allow you to find who will be a good fit.
Absolutely. I'm going to share something very quick, Nan, before we close this off. And again, I might put this into the IG. I'm not 100% sure yet. I was invited to a group reading to be the reader. I was the medium. And I went in blind. Never met these people before. Not one of them. They said I was recommended to them. And so I think there was 4 couples that were there. And I did this reading. And I brought this woman through. And I gave where she was. I gave a lot of stuff that I knew nothing about, including who was, I guess, the ender of her life. And I gave all of this. And the thing is that no one can use any of it. They couldn't. They couldn't use any of it. They could use some of it because I wasn't super specific. I gave a place, and they actually said that these people already knew that place, and there was some really cool stuff. I did this without any trepidation. I did this without any expectation or judgment from myself because I didn't know I would be doing this. Turns out in the end, the individual just got charged.
Nice.
And that was, it's a weird charge. It's not the charge, but it's a charge enough, I guess. And they called me up and they just told me this today's Wednesday? Yesterday. They called me up and said, hey, we want you to know this. So I don't know if I could have gotten out of my humanness enough to do that if I knew what they were going to ask me, or maybe even who they were asking me about. I knew nothing. And so I could just let spirit, she just came through and she told me everything, and I just it out to them. I don't know if I would want to be the person that every time something happened, the police called. Right?
Yeah, I don't think I could. There was a point where I thought that was the direction I was going, and I went the complete opposite to working with animals who are the most unconditional, loving, ooey gooey good energy. And I'm happy with that decision, because I think it would break my heart every single time working those cases.
I agree. I don't know if I'm made for that. Right? And people might, kind of come back at us and say, well, isn't this your gift? Isn't this what you're supposed to do? This is not a gift. If everyone can do this work, it's not a gift. And I just want to say this, we don't actually owe anyone anything. If I can't look after myself, I won't be able to do anything anyway.
That is so important. I'm glad you said that.
And on that note, I want to just say, thank you, I did it, woohoo! That's my first full-on research down the rabbit hole kind of thing. I feel good, I feel proud. Nan, what do we want to tell people? Anything?
We want to tell them thank you for listening. And if you love this podcast and you come back regularly, thank you for keep coming back. And if you love it even more, refer it to your friends who might get something out of the listen. Follow us on all the socials. I'm at Nancy Christine Brady, and Tara is Spirit Essence by Tara Diana, and we're both on all the platforms. And then follow our Instagram, which is Spirits Angels Guides.
And if you're looking for something inspirational, motivational, a little bit of healing, a little bit of meditations, every Tuesday night, the Spirit Essence Collective is on live streaming on YouTube, live streaming in Spirit Essence by Tara Diana on Facebook, and we do something called the Unity Circle. It's where we invite, Nan was on the first one, she'll be on again soon, where we have an inspirational talk, we do meditation, we do a healing prayer, hands up for everyone, and we give messages at the end. So come and follow us there too. It's just a nice place to just chill and relax and be with like-minded people. Nan, I love you.
Love you too, babes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the wonderfully weird and metaphysical.
If you loved what you heard, don't forget to follow us for more insights and behind-the-scenes fun.